Okay, I've been watching videos for the past week on acrylic pouring, and it's intrigued me a lot, so I just wanted to experiment. I didn't want to go out and spend a lot of money on something that I wasn't sure if I would continue, so I'm trying to do this with just materials that I have in my stash. So I didn't have an actual flow medium, so I decided to try to create one of my own. And I used some of the DecoArt Premium Heavy Gel Medium Gloss and thinned that down with some JoSonya Flow Medium that I had. I mixed that together about half and half, and then I mixed that into my paint. I am using three colors, Titan Buff by DecoArt Americana Premium, Carbon Black also by Americana Premium, and some True Gold by DecoArt Traditions. That was a real pretty rich gold that I thought would be a nice contrast to the buff and the black. So I've mixed the paint up with the medium, and then I added some water to it to thin it down to what everyone seems to say is the right consistency to pour, which is so that it flows in an even stream from your stick or stirring, whatever you're using to stir. I didn't have any popsicle sticks. I'm sure I do someplace, but I can't find them right now. My place is such a mess. So I'm just using these little plastic palette knives that I bought a bunch of them from Royal Langnickel for some classes. And they wipe off very easily with a paper towel, so I don't have to worry about transferring paint. And I can use them over and over again. Then the only thing that I actually went out and bought that I didn't have was some silicone. And everyone seems to be using the treadmill silicone, but that's about $15 a bottle, and I would have had to order it online or drive a little farther out to Dick's Sporting Goods or someplace that I didn't feel like driving in this single-degree weather. So I was able to run down the Home Depot that was just about a mile from my house, and they had the 3-in-1 silicone, and it was $4 a bottle. So I figured if I don't continue to pour, I can always use it for things around the house that need lubricated. So I'm not wasting any money. So I have these a little 5x5 canvas that I'm going to do this experiment on. I got these at Hobby Lobby with some gift cards that I got for Christmas, so I had a lot of these laying around. And I have these little like salsa cups that I bought at Sam's. I've got a gazillion of them that I bought for classes to put mediums in when I'm teaching classes. So I had plenty of those on hand, so I decided just to use those using them here to hold the little canvas up off plastic surface. And this is just a lid from a plastic shoebox that I've used to store different wood samples that I sell on my website that I've been discontinuing. So I have a bunch of these boxes that are sitting empty, so I thought, well, I'll just use one of these lids. And I think that's all I've got going into this project. So the next step will be to do the dirty mix and apply it to the surface. Okay, I stopped the video a minute to just add a little bit more water to my paint mixtures, and I guess the next thing to do is to add a little bit of the silicone to them. I don't know if this has a seal on it or not. Nope, no seal. So what I've read, you add about 2 or 3 drops. Do 4. And I'm going to put that away. And the point of the silicone oil, from everything I've read, is that it's oil, and we're mixing this with a water-based acrylic, so the oil and water will separate. So when you pour this paint in layers, that oil is going to cause unusual patterns. And some paint may rise to the surface, creating what they call cells, which you have to look on the internet, just Google acrylic paint pouring, and you'll find all kinds of examples of just beautiful patterns that are achieved by this. And there's so many different techniques for applying the paint to the surface. We're going to try the one that seems to be a common practice here, which is called a dirty pour. So you take your little cups and you start with a clean cup and start pouring that paint in layers. And how you can kind of control how much the paint mixes together in the pour by how high you pour from. The higher you pour from, the more your paint's going to fall through the paint that's already in the cup. And also some pigments are heavier than others, so that'll affect how much they go through also. So we're just going to keep layering these. White tends, this one is, even though it's called Titan Buff, it's mostly white, so white is a very heavy pigment, so we'll get a lot of that falling through to the bottom, which when you actually turn it and pour, that's going to be on the top, and the other layers of paint should come up through it. Now, I'm never sure, I've been trying to watch to see if there's some formula for how much paint you need. And I think what I've gathered is that you need about 3/4 of an ounce of paint to cover a 4x4 surface. So I think we've got plenty here. So we'll put some more of the gold, a little more black, and finish off with some of the white on top. So hopefully this will be enough. We got about, this cup's not quite half full. So you can do some very minimal stirring once you put your colors in, just to mix them together a little more. So I'm just going to just swipe my palette knife through. I did kind of an S stroke and then around the outer edge a little bit. And what they do, what they call a dirty flip pour, is when you take your canvas and your paint and you lay your canvas on top of the paint cup, hold them together tightly, and then you quickly flip it over. Let that rest a few seconds just to let that paint fall down to the bottom. Tap it to help it along a little bit, and then we will kind of slide a little bit and lift. Let some of this excess just come out on these corners where we'll need to have the paint come over. And this is really turning out pretty. Like I said, this is my very first attempt, and I know some people have mentioned that it's hard to get cells, but I feel like we're doing a really good job of getting cells here. I'll try to zoom the camera down so you can see them a little more. Now this has developed some really pretty cells. A lot of people will use a little heat torch, like a little kitchen propane torch, to cause some more activity to create cells. I've seen others use a heat gun, like I have a heat gun, but it's the one I have with my Genesis oil paints, the heat set oils. But that will tend to cause your paints to blow around a little bit, so I don't think you want to do that too much with the heat gun, unless your paints are a little thicker and aren't moving too much. I'm using a palette knife right now to kind of coax this paint to the edges before I start tipping the canvas. Okay, so I think I've got, you can see this paint on that's fallen down onto the plastic lid is getting kind of just gray where the colors are mixing together too much. I don't want to get that on the top of my canvas much. But then you can pick up the canvas a little bit and just gently tilt it so that color starts running a little bit. And that can help spread out your cells a little bit more. Another thing you can do is you probably should have plastic gloves on. That was one of the things everyone recommends, and of course I didn't do that. I'm just a messy painter. You can take like a drinking straw and just gently blow the colors a little bit. You see where there's a little dry canvas here, it's sometimes hard to get that to fill in, and that's why when you put the wet paint around the edges, it seems like the liquid attracts liquid. So you can see there when I blow, since I covered those little spots up, it's much easier to blow the paint. So now this paint, you want your surface level so that the paint doesn't run all off your canvas, because it's going to take a while for this to dry and set up. And if you have it off balance, it's going to cause all that paint to slide right off your canvas. So you want to try to make sure you have a level surface. And it'll take 2 to 3 days for it to dry, and then once it's dry you can put a coat of, seems like a high gloss varnish looks best on these. But you can see they're very organic looking. They look like some type of natural stone, especially with these colors. I just really like this color combination of the black, gold, and the cream. I almost wish I had a little bit more of the gold and black in it. It's gotten real light here in the center. You know, you could, I mean, I could go back with some of my paint and probably pour some spots a little bit here. Maybe use the straw to blow them around a little bit. I guess the thing is to kind of experiment and see what you get. I could layer some black and gold. Do a little stir, and then this is what they call a dirty pour, which is just pouring the color onto the surface rather than flipping and pouring it. And you can kind of control your patterns a little bit more that way. I probably ruined it by doing that because it did have a pretty pattern before. I'll see what I can do by just blowing this and creating some different edges. I guess you get sort of a granite, or trying to think of one of the other natural stones they use for countertops that have these effects. I think I've dispersed that enough so that it looks more like part of the pour now. So for a first attempt with, just materials that I had on hand, I'm real pleased, and I'm going to try some more of these. So if you have any questions about it, just send me some comments and I'll share some others that I do with you. Thank you. See you later.